notification came in at 11:37 on a Tuesday night, and I almost didn't see it. I'd been in my home office, still half-dressed from a video call I'd wrapped up 2 hours earlier. Laptop open to a spreadsheet I'd been staring at for so long the numbers had started blurring together. My phone lit up on the desk beside me, and I glanced over without really meaning to. It was a text from my sister-in-law. Family dinner Sunday. Your brother has something important to discuss. Be there at 2. Not a question, not an invitation, a summons. I set the phone face down and went back to my spreadsheet. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself that every time. I should back up. My name is Vivian. I'm 31 years old, and for the past 4 years I've been running a small e-commerce consulting business out of a converted second bedroom in my apartment in Austin, Texas. I started it with $11,000 I'd saved working double shifts at a hotel front desk, a secondhand laptop, and a course I'd taken on digital marketing that my brother told me was a waste of money. My brother's name is Preston. He is 38, 7 years older than me, and he has spent most of his adult life being the family's official representative of success. He's a commercial real estate broker in Dallas, or he was. He had the right clothes, the right vocabulary, the right way of walking into a room and making everyone feel like they were lucky he'd shown up. Our parents adored him. That's not me being bitter. That's just the plain shape of how our family worked. Preston was the firstborn, the son, the one who'd graduated from UT with a business degree and immediately gone into a field our father understood. I was the younger daughter who dropped out of her junior year of college to try something on the internet, which, in my family's vocabulary, was roughly equivalent to running away to join a circus. My parents, I'll call them mom and dad because that's what they are, were not cruel people. They were just people who trusted what they could see. Preston had a business card and a company car. I had a laptop and a lot of hours they couldn't account for. For a long time, that math made me the risky one. So when the Sunday dinner text arrived and I felt that familiar drop in my stomach, it wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. I put it out of my mind for 3 days. Then I didn't. On Friday morning, I was on a call with a client in Phoenix when another message came through from my brother himself this time. Not a text, a voicemail. I listened to it during my lunch break, standing at my kitchen counter with a bowl of pasta going cold in front of me. Hey Viv. His voice was warm in that careful way it got when he wanted something. Listen, Sunday dinner is important. I need you there. There are some things happening with the family and I need everyone at the table. Okay? Call me back. He did not say what things. He did not say which family. But the way he said I need everyone at the table made the pasta taste like nothing. I didn't call him back. I thought about it. I sat with my phone in my hand for a good 4 minutes, and then I put it down and opened my laptop instead. Here's the thing about the business my family thought was a phase. It had stopped being a phase around year 2. By the end of year 3, I had 12 recurring clients, a wait list, and a team of 4 contractors I worked with regularly. I had a system, a reputation in a specific niche, and a profit margin that would have surprised every person in my family except maybe my grandmother, who had always said I reminded her of herself. What I hadn't done, and this is the part that matters, is talk about any of it. Not the numbers, not the clients, not the contracts. I'd learned early on that the moment I shared a win, someone in my family found a way to reframe it. If I mentioned a good month, Preston would say it was unsustainable. If I mentioned a new client, Dad would ask if they were paying me properly, by which he meant did they pay in a way he recognized as legitimate. If I mentioned anything about growth, Mom would gently suggest I think about stability, which was code for a please go get a normal job so we can stop worrying. So I stopped telling them things, I just kept working. By the time that Sunday dinner text arrived, I had just come off the biggest quarter of my professional life. I had closed a contract in late September, a regional retail chain looking to expand their online presence, that had landed a payment of $2 and to my business account. It was a multi-year retainer. It was the kind of number that changes the shape of your life if you're careful with it. My family knew none of this. I drove to my parents' house in Plano on Sunday at 2 o'clock because that's what I always did. I told myself I was going because I loved my parents, which was true. I told myself I was going because avoiding it would only delay whatever this was, which was also true. What I didn't tell myself, not out loud anyway, was that I had a folder in my bag. I'm getting to that. The house looked the same as it always did. Brick front, two-car garage, the rose bushes my mother has tended for 20 years along the left side of the driveway. My parents bought this house when Preston was 4 and I was still theoretical. They've lived here through 2 recessions and 1 pandemic, and it looks exactly as it should, solid and permanent, and a little bit frozen in 1998. Preston's car was already in the driveway. A leased Mercedes SUV, black, one of the newer models. His wife Tara's Infiniti was parked behind it. I pulled in beside the curb and sat for a moment with my hands in my lap. My phone showed a notification from my business bank app. I'd set up an alert for large transactions, and it had fired that morning to confirm the second installment of the retainer had cleared. I looked at the number. I'd put the phone in my bag, got out of the car, and rang the doorbell. Mom answered in her Sunday clothes, apron over a blue blouse. The smell of roast chicken coming through from the kitchen. Vivian. She hugged me. You look tired. Hi, Mom. Preston's already here. We're all in the living room. Come on. She said we're all in the living room the way you say it when the living room has become a meeting room without anyone officially announcing it. Dad was in his armchair. He stood when I came in. He always does that. It's one of my favorite things about him. And we hugged. Preston was on the couch, jacket off, one arm draped over the back cushions like he owned the furniture. Tara was beside him, knees together, hands folded in her lap. She smiled at me with the kind of smile that has temperature but no warmth. Viv. Preston stood too, and we did the cheek kiss thing we'd been doing since we were old enough to pretend we were closer than we were. Glad you made it. Of course, I said. I sat in the chair across from the couch, the one near the window. I put my bag on the floor beside me. We had dinner first. My mother had made roast chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans, and a salad. The same meal she makes when she wants everyone to feel held. We talked about the weather in Dallas, about my dad's back, about my nephew Oliver's soccer team. It was almost normal. I kept waiting for the shape of it to change, and it did, about 40 minutes in when my mother started clearing the plates and Preston sat back and cleared his throat. So, he said, I wanted to talk about something. My dad put his coffee cup down. I've been going through some adjustments, Preston said. He used the word adjustments the way people use it when the word they mean is catastrophe. The commercial market in DFW has been rough this year. You've probably read about it. The interest rate environment, the office vacancy situation. It's hit a lot of people in my space hard. He paused. No one spoke. I've had to let some clients go. And some deals that were supposed to close, they didn't. He glanced at Tara, who gave him the smallest nod. We're in a difficult position right now, financially, and I've been thinking about what we need to do as a family. Dad said, How difficult? Preston looked at his hands. We're behind on the mortgage. We had to close the second office. I let 2 people go in October. He paused again. And there's some debt we've been managing that it's gotten harder to manage. The room was very quiet. I looked at my mother's face. She was watching Preston with the expression she wore during thunderstorms when we were kids. Present, worried, completely focused on the thing she feared most. Okay, my dad said. What do you need? And this is where it shifted. Preston looked at me. Not at both of us. At me. I need to talk about Vivian's business, he said. My whole body went still. I've been watching what you do, he said in a tone that suggested surveillance rather than admiration. And I think there's a way you could restructure things so that the assets are better protected, more organized, with proper oversight. Oversight, I repeated. You're a sole proprietor, right? No real corporate structure. Everything's just running through you, personally. If something happened to you, or if you hit a rough patch, there's no protection for anyone. I have an LLC, I said, and an S-Corp election, and a CPA I've worked with for 3 years. He made a small sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Yeah, but it's not. There's no governance, Viv. There's no one else withstanding to make decisions if if something happened. If something happened, I have a designated successor clause in my operating agreement. He blinked. I don't think he'd expected that sentence. I've been talking to a lawyer, he said, and there's a structure where a family trust is set up with fiduciary oversight, and it would protect the business, protect your assets, and it would give Dad and I the ability to step in if. No, I said. The word came out very flat. Viv? Dith. You're describing a power of attorney over my business, I said. That's what this is. You've dressed it up in trust language and fiduciary language, but what you're asking for is the legal authority to make decisions about my business on my behalf. Preston set his jaw. Tara looked at her lap. I'm asking for protection, he said, for the family. You're asking for access, I said. There's a difference. My mother made a small sound from the kitchen doorway. My dad looked at the table. Then Preston leaned forward and his voice dropped to something that was meant to be concern and wasn't quite. Viv, I've been watching you struggle with this thing for years. I know you don't like to admit it, but you've been barely getting by. And right now, with the way things are for all of us, it makes sense to consolidate. I'm not struggling, I said. He kept going. You're a one-person operation running out of your apartment. You don't have staff. You don't have a physical presence. You don't have any of the markers that indicate a sustainable. Preston. I'm trying to help you. Preston. He stopped. I reached down and picked up my bag. I took out the folder. I set it on the coffee table in front of him. He looked at it. He looked at me. What is this? Open it, I said. He opened it slowly with the careful hands of someone who has just realized they are not sure what they're about to see. The first page was a screenshot of my business bank account, the balance, the recent deposits, the account history going back 6 months. He went very quiet. That's my business account, I said. That deposit at the top came in on Thursday. That's the second installment of a multi-year retainer I closed in September. The total contract value is $2.3 million. Tara's hands unfolded in her lap. The next few pages, I said, are my LLC operating documents, my S-Corp election filing, my CPA's most recent audit summary, and my projected revenue for next fiscal year. I paused. The last page is something else. Preston had gone still in a way that had nothing to do with calm. I want you to find the last page, I said. He turned to it. It was a printout I'd pulled 3 days earlier after I'd listened to his voicemail and felt something sharpen in my chest that I hadn't been able to name until that moment. I'd called a contact who works in commercial property research, someone I'd done work for the year before, and I'd asked a simple question. Is there anything public on Preston Albrecht in Dallas County? There was. A UCC1 financing statement filed 6 months ago showing his brokerage firm as a debtor on a secured loan of $480,000. A second filing showing a personal guarantee he'd signed on a commercial lease that had gone into default. A civil filing from a former business partner alleging breach of contract and seeking damages north of $200,000. None of this was secret. All of it was public record. I just happened to know how to find it. Preston looked at the last page for a long time. You're the one who needs oversight, I said. I wasn't angry when I said it. I was the opposite of angry. I was very, very calm in a way that had taken me years to learn. You have $480,000 in secured debt. You have a personal guarantee on a defaulted lease. You have a former partner suing you, and you came to this table and asked our parents to help you take control of my business. My mother sat down. My father said, Preston. Not a question, just the name, just the shape of it. It's not, Preston started. I pulled the public records, I said. I'm not accusing you of anything that isn't already in the courthouse filing system. I just want everyone at this table to have the same information. Tara said, very quietly, Preston, you told me the loan was refinanced. He didn't answer her. My dad looked older in that moment than I had ever seen him look. He reached out and picked up the last page and read it slowly, the way he reads anything important, with his finger tracing the lines. My mother watched him the way she always does when she's waiting to understand what to feel. How long? My dad said. Preston looked at the window. Preston. My dad's voice was not loud, it never is when it means something. How long have you been in this situation? About 14 months, Preston said. He said it to the window. The room was very quiet for a while. I sat in my chair with my hands in my lap and I did not feel what I'd expected to feel, which was some kind of satisfaction. What I actually felt was tired. Tired in the specific way you feel when something you've known for a long time finally stops being a secret. My dad picked up all the pages of the folder, stacked them neatly, and set them back down. Vivian, he said. Dad, I owe you an apology. I hadn't expected that, not that quickly, not that directly. My dad is a proud man in the best sense of the word. He doesn't offer apologies lightly because he doesn't give himself reason for them lightly. When he says it, it means something. You have been building something real, he said. And I let your brothers, he paused, searching for the right word, his way of framing things color how I saw your work. That wasn't fair to you, and I'm sorry for it. My throat felt strange. Thank you, I said. Preston started to say something, and my father looked at him and he stopped. We're going to talk, my dad said to Preston. You and I are going to sit down and look at what's actually happening, and we're going to figure out what's real and what can be fixed. But it's going to start with honesty. From the beginning. All of it. Preston nodded at his hands. My mother asked if anyone wanted more coffee. It was such a mom thing to do, the most mom thing in the world, and it broke some of the tension in the room just by being itself. I said yes. She brought me a mug, and she held my hand for a moment before she let it go. And that was her apology, the one she'd always give with touch instead of words. Tara left early. She and Preston didn't fight about it in front of us, but she picked up her coat and her bag and said she needed to get home to check on the kids, and the way she said it meant something else entirely. Preston watched her go with the face of a man who knows an argument is only delayed, not avoided. I helped my mother with the dishes. We talked about small things, Oliver's soccer again, a neighbor who'd had surgery, a recipe she was trying to find. The kitchen felt the way it always has, warm and a little bit orange from the overhead light, smelling of dish soap and whatever she'd been cooking. I stood at the sink and rinsed plates and thought about nothing in particular, which is rare for me, and it was okay. Before I left, my dad walked me to my car. The evening had gone cool the way Texas evenings do in late fall, that dry chill that doesn't feel like cold until you stop moving. I want you to know something, he said, standing by the driver's side door. Okay. I always knew you were capable. I just let other voices get louder than my own. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. You don't need to keep your work a secret from us, he said. Not from me, anyway. I looked at him. He looked back. His face in the dark looked like the version of him I remembered from when I was maybe 9 years old. The one who taught me to ride a bike in this exact driveway and never once let me believe I couldn't do it. Okay, I said, I'll work on that. He hugged me. I drove home. 3 weeks later, my dad called me from a conference room in downtown Plano. He pulled Preston's finances with the help of a CPA friend. Not to salvage them, necessarily, but to understand them. The picture was worse than the courthouse filing suggested. The brokerage firm was effectively insolvent. Preston had been using a personal HELOC on the house to cover business operating costs for over a year. The house was at risk. I asked my dad what Preston was going to do. He said, he's going to have to make some hard decisions and live with some hard consequences. That's all any of us can do. I asked if there was anything I could do. My dad said, "You've already done it, you showed up with the truth. That was enough." Preston and Tara listed the house in January. They moved into a rental in Garland, 2 bedrooms, something manageable while they figured out the next step. Preston reached out to me once, a text just, "I know I put you in an unfair position. I'm sorry." I read it probably 10 times. I wrote back, "I know. Thank you. We haven't talked much beyond that, but it's a different kind of silence than before. Less charged. More like space that might eventually become something else." My mother called me on my birthday in February, and for the first time in a long time, we talked for an hour. Not about Preston, not about the dinner, not about the folder. She asked about my work, genuinely, with real questions, asking me to explain things I'd never explained to her before. I told her about the retainer, about the client in Phoenix, about the team I was starting to build. She said, "I didn't understand what you were doing before. I think I was scared of what I didn't understand." I said, "I know, Mom. Me too, sometimes." I've thought about that Sunday dinner a lot since then, about what made me pick up the folder instead of leaving it at home, which I had considered. I'd spent a week before the dinner not being sure I was going to bring it. I knew what I knew. I'd already decided I wasn't signing anything, wasn't agreeing to anything, wasn't giving an inch of what I built to anyone. I could have just said no and left it at that. But I brought the folder because I was tired of being the one in the room who knew the truth and stayed quiet about it. I had done that for years, stayed quiet while my work was minimized, stayed quiet while my brother performed success like a stage play, stayed quiet while my parents loved a version of each of us that wasn't entirely accurate. Quiet had felt like self-preservation for a long time. That Sunday, it felt like something I was finally done with. My business crossed $3 million in total revenue in the first quarter of this year. I have a small team now, 2 full-time employees and a handful of contractors I work with regularly, people I've built real working relationships with over time. I have an office space in East Austin, nothing fancy, but it has windows and a coffee maker and a conference table where I sit with clients and talk about their numbers in a language I had to teach myself from scratch. My dad came to visit in March. I showed him the office. He stood in the doorway for a moment, just taking it in. The whiteboard with campaign frameworks on it, the monitors, the little plant on the windowsill I keep forgetting to water, but somehow hasn't died. He said, "This is real." I said, "Yeah, Dad, it's been real for a while." He laughed, and it was the laugh of someone who is genuinely happy to be wrong about something. I made him a coffee and we sat at the conference table and I told him everything, all of it going back to the beginning. He listened the whole time without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know what the funniest part is?" I said, "What?" "Preston always said you were the one who needed looking after." I looked at my dad. He looked at me. "Turns out," he said, "you were the one looking after yourself the whole time." I still think about the folder sometimes, not with pride exactly, more like recognition. The recognition that comes when you finally stop pretending you don't know what you know. For years I kept my head down and my numbers quiet. I told myself it was practical, safer. Why share something that would just be minimized or picked apart? But if I'm honest, there was something else underneath that silence. A part of me that had absorbed my family's doubts so deeply I wasn't entirely sure they were wrong. Maybe the business was fragile. Maybe I was one bad quarter away from proving everyone right. That voice doesn't announce itself. It just sits there in the back of your chest and makes you smaller than you are. What changed wasn't the $2.3 million. The money clarified things, but it didn't create them. What changed was the moment I decided that being right in private wasn't enough anymore. That living in a version of myself that other people had invented, the struggling younger sister, the risky one, the one who needed looking after, was a choice I was making every time I stayed quiet. Preston walked into that living room with documents and legal language and a story about protecting the family, and underneath all of it was a simple bet that I didn't know enough, wasn't prepared enough, wouldn't push back hard enough, He had been making that bet for years, and for years I had let him win it by default. I don't think Preston is a bad person. I think he was drowning and he looked around for something to grab, and old habits told him I was the safest thing to reach for. That's its own kind of lesson. The ways our worst moments reveal the assumptions we've been carrying. He assumed I was soft because I'd never shown him otherwise. That's not entirely his fault. But here's what I've come to understand: the work I put in, the years of learning, of building systems, of making hard calls alone at 11 p.m. when no one was watching, that work had a purpose beyond the revenue it generated. It built something in me that money can't fully measure. A kind of knowing, not arrogance, just clarity. The clarity of someone who has done the actual thing, not just talked about doing it. My dad said something to me that March afternoon in my office that I keep returning to. He said, "You were looking after yourself the whole time." He meant it as a compliment, and I took it as one, but I also think it points at something true about what it actually means to be capable. It's not about being loud about it. It's about doing it consistently, in the small choices, in the unglamorous hours, until one day you open a folder, and the truth is just sitting there, patient, waiting to be seen. The Sunday dinner didn't fix my family. It just made us more honest with each other. Preston is rebuilding, slowly. My parents ask about my work now. Really ask, in the way that means they want to understand. Not just hear that I'm okay. It's not a perfect story, but I've stopped needing it to be. What I know is this: the choices I made when no one was paying attention were the ones that mattered most. The discipline when I was tired. The integrity when it would have been easier to cut a corner. The refusal to give up on something I believed in just because the people around me couldn't see it yet. Those things compounded quietly, the way real things do. Until one Tuesday night in November, they were enough.